It's time. It's time, boys and ladies. It is time. You guys asked for it, and here is my review for The Flash Season 9 series finale. One thing I do want to say right off the bat, I do apologize to anyone who's wanted to see a review from me on The Flash, because I've said for the longest time, I might do like the first 5 episodes, but eventually it kind of never happened. I tuned in here and there to check some scenes out, like the Red Death arc, and one funny thing about that is, before we actually get into all of this, I want to say, I've chosen to review this today because, hey, it does mark the end of like a massive thing. Like The Flash Season 9 or the series has ended. And I reviewed this show for years and years and years and years and years, up until the point of where I don't think it's crazy to say that I just think Eric Wallace and some other ingredients that went into the show, and I'm not discounting that it had some decent moments here and there, but overall, I felt like I had too many issues with it in reviews than positive feedback, if you know what I mean. So I decided to drop it in the end. But no matter what, this show does hold a special place in my heart. It's helped me get a bit of the foundational audience here. I love The Flash. He's my second favorite DC hero out there. The cast, I'm still very much in love with them. Like, Grant Gustin is my Flash, and I think that's going to be very, very hard to change my mind on in the future. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm sure you guys know what I mean there. I thought, hey, let's review the final episode as I always would. So I'm going to run through it typically like I did in the past. We're going to go through the events. I'm going to give my opinions on certain things that stood out to me. And I do want to say right off the bat, if you're expecting, somewhat of like an echo of me saying to you, and for example, let's just say you loved it, and you're expecting me to say, I absolutely loved every part of it, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. This is a review. These are my takes. This is my opinion. I do have some things to praise, and, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get teary-eyed. I'm an emotional person when it comes to TV. So, when I watched a few scenes in this, towards the end, I was like, I was a little bit like that. But throughout it, while there were some cool moments, it still had the very much so Flash-isms, or maybe I should rephrase that to Eric Wallace-isms, that I just feel like it has declined the quality of the show. And I don't want to be a party pooper there, but I'm just saying it how it is. And I know immediately, for some reason in this world, that just automatically rubs people up the wrong way. And if that's the case for you, then this isn't the video for you. Do not watch it because, I might get a bit nitpicky every now and again. But I think for those who have still stuck with The Flash, and it's always interesting in my live streams and whatnot, people will acknowledge a lot of these flaws. And I think they're just still watching it because they've been watching for 7 years, 8 years already at that point. And I'm not saying that applies to everyone. If you find nothing wrong with this show and you find it flawless and amazing, then more power to you. But I do find it interesting that people, again, I see it all the time. Even from other reviewers, the biggest reviewers reviewing The Flash right now, I have seen them say, this season. Oh, yeah, the Red Death arc. This moment. Oh, what is Eric Wallace doing? Seriously. So thank God I don't feel alone there. I don't know. I just feel like I had to get that on my system initially. Even when it comes to me wanting to catch up for this season, people were saying, okay, skip this. You literally miss out on nothing. Watch this episode, the Oliver Queen episode, and then maybe this episode, then the series finale. So it's going to be really interesting seeing what everyone thought of the actual series finale to The Flash. But either way, I've been rambling too much. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry for going on at the beginning there. Just wanted to give a bit of a backstory because I haven't tuned into The Flash in a hot minute, and I'm doing this for old time's sakes. The people who are like, hey, I used to watch your Flash reviews for years. I would love to see your take on the finale. So with that being said, like this video if you do go on to enjoy it. Dislike it if you want to. If you don't like this video, go ahead. And maybe subscribe for more videos like this. Now, right off the bat, I enjoyed the nice touch at the beginning with the somewhat younger monologue from Barry talking about believing in the impossible and how that comes full circle at the end. I'm all for these kind of things. We then have Team Flash talking about how Eddie Thawne is the avatar of the negative Speed Force. The crystal has been attacking them from across time, and the crystal has been essentially charging with power. And by the way, I want to say right off the bat, it is really good seeing Eddie come back. I wish the show did this a bit sooner, but hey, they've done it. So it is really cool. And obviously, as of last episode, it is actually Eddie Thawne. It's a bit of a timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly thing. He remembers everything after he got shown the context. And one of the things that I have to choose to believe in 100%, and this is an actual influence to Eddie, is that I feel like there are cheesy moments with the way he behaves and this, that, and the other, but I choose to believe it's the dark side influence from that of the negative Speed Force. That's what's giving him this kind of crazy mode that he's entered into, even though it technically is the Eddie we know and love. But there is an aspect of tragedy to it as well. Can you imagine being Eddie, then being killed, and then coming back with all of your memories? So to Eddie, it's not really been that long, and then he sees this whole life that has transpired for Iris and Barry and the life that he could have had. It's kind of simple, but it is still something you can, get empathy for. It's just, obviously, it's a bit villainous, tropey, going down the dark side, getting the crystal and being influenced by the negative tachyons and all of that. But hey, this is superhero stuff, so I'm still really enjoying it. And I think Rick Cosnet did do a great job. I've seen some people say that he overacted at times, and I see what people were saying there. I don't know if I agree with it, because I do see what people are saying. I feel like maybe it's a result maybe of the editing of the episode at points where if they were playing a bit more of a somber or negative Speed Force soundtrack, it might have gelled a little bit better. But either way, I'm just here for the fact that Rick Cosnet is back and he's Cobalt Blue, and the suit, for what it is on the CW, is very comic accurate, and I think it looks pretty decent. So the whole gist is there's a big threat with what Eddie's doing. Damage to the timeline has already started in 2049, and if it spreads here, then that's not good. If Barry dies, then you kill the Speed Force, and then literally it screws this timeline, and then Eddie, Cobalt Blue, wants to create a whole new timeline with him as the hero, which is when we get a bunch of cuts to Zoom, the last time we saw of him, with the time wraiths attacking him, and Teddy Sears is back. Now, I'm very happy about this. It was great. I'm sure a bunch of Flash fans who are still ride or die with this show were going crazy. Even to me, who's tuned out for quite a hot minute now, I was like, yes, Teddy Sears. And Teddy Sears has always been a very emotive actor, when the mask is off. But I feel like with this scene, as much as I was finding it cool, it was still very Eric Wallace campy cheesy, if you know what I mean. Because we had Zoom come back, then Godspeed enters, and then, of course, we have Wellsabard enter, which is awesome, and it's a really formidable threat for Team Flash, which I do think introduces a couple of issues later on with how easily I felt like each arch enemy was kind of dealt with. I did like some of the lines with regards to Wellsabard saying, "Welcome to the negative Speed Force, fellas. First time." But the cheesiness of it, I don't remember it being this somewhat cheesy back in the day. I think back to the time of when Zoom, held Henry Allen hostage, and we had Barry there. I saw a clip of that on Twitter the other day, and I sometimes want to factor in, is it just me, 7 years in the future finding, or, hindsight being 2020, seeing maybe how it actually was cheesy and I didn't realize it back then? I don't think it was. I really don't think it was, and that's why people talk about the tonal changes so much in the show from what has been back then to present day, or really season 4 onwards, even though they fluctuated a little bit. But here, you just have Godspeed enter, just who dares disrupt my revenge, or how dangerous it is to threaten me from Zoom, and how Savitar comes in and he's like, no, I'm the true speed god of speed, or whatever. Again, I do want to lay this down when I'm explaining this, that yes, I know comic book dialogue can be like this, but I felt like the way it was just all flowing was a bit cheese, as much as I was happy being oh, there's Zoom again. Oh, look, Wellsbud. Oh, look, Godspeed. Yeah, Godspeed. But, oh, look, Savitar. Eddie informs them that they all died. None of them were strong enough, powerful enough, or fast enough to defeat the Flash, but together they can do what none of them could do on their own, which is okay, that's a feasible plan. This is when Eddie suits up. We get to see the Cobalt blue suit, even though we saw leaks of this a little while ago. So this is where they're essentially all united in finally killing the Flash, right? But I have seen some opinions out there, and I have to say, I do agree with it for the most part. I am going to entertain that. I think there's arguments on both sides here. And what am I talking about? It's just like, would these villains really all work together? The argument for it is that, well, they were all defeated by the Flash, so maybe their top priority is like finally getting that vengeance and, well, just revenge for being humiliated there with their egos and whatnot. But there are some good points as well, such as with Savitar. Obviously, Savitar is a broken version of Barry Allen. And you say what you will about season 3, but there were some really good scenes in there. Would he really work with two of the people, Reverse Flash and Zoom, who orphaned him, you know, Reverse Flash Nora, and then Zoom with Henry Allen with that amazing scene back in the day? I know it's an alternate version of Barry, but he is still, like, with the way that his arc was constructed, and I'm not saying Savitar was great or anything like that, but I'm just saying he is still a darker Barry Allen who lived through everything Barry Allen did. So is it truly believable he'd work with the man who killed his father and the other man who killed his mother? I don't know. It's just something to entertain your minds with here, because there's a question that I saw pop up and I was like, yeah. But of course, you know, you can kind of tell for the sake of the finale, let's get him in here and let's just cause a bunch of anarchy. This is when Barry goes over to Iris, who is in the process of giving birth. This is when Eddie appears, gives himself the name of Cobalt Blue. I mean, I get it. That's the character's name, but it's just kind of like, how did you get that name? But I guess they didn't really have the time to get into that. He creepily wants to give Iris some flowers. I suppose it is more of a congratulations before he rewrites the timeline so that he's the hero. Again, he's going on about how he just wants his life back. And when you compare this to who Eddie really is, he wouldn't really do this, even with all like the somewhat exposition of setting up how sad it is with him realizing how much he's missed out on the life that he thought he could have has more or less been taken from him. But I still put the blame ultimately, and I do feel like this is a relevant plot thing. It can be done. You know, take Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith. Darkseid in Star Wars can quite literally corrupt you, and it's very hard to pull you out of that kind of negative tachyon mindset that you're in. You can give in to the hate like Thawne did, and obviously this is a big thing towards the end of the episode, and it's a very, very, very easy thing to give into, but you can arguably resist it. But again, I think this brings up a little bit of an issue later on with what Eric Wallace was trying to establish here with like coexistence. I'm really not sure if I believe in that. I get the message. It is very, very, very Eric Wallace from what I'm used to with what he's done in the show and show running it. I don't know if I'm so for that, but I'm already talking about something before we've got to it. And Eddie's like, any last words? This was a bit of a cheesy moment, but it is very Flash at the same time. Iris is like, I've got 3. Run, Barry, run. Of course. So this is when Cobalt Blue and Barry both race off. And I have to say, I'm not going to lie, I really dig Eddie's, or, you know, Rick Cosnett's, running stance. It is really cool. Like, it's really aggressive. A lot of the time, like, even Nora and other species we've seen in the show, they don't always pull it off as well as Grant Gustin does. But here, I was like, damn. Like, that looks pretty cool. But at the same time, admittedly, I haven't checked out The Flash in a little while. I think the last time I remember was I was getting a bit past Armageddon. And all while this was cool speeds to action, I do not want to take that away from this. Like, in of itself, like what they did, it's like, okay, 2 species going at it, pretty cool. I still stand by the aspect of, like, I feel like the Play-Doh-esque CGI models of Barry and Cobalt, the quality has somewhat downgraded in the show. Now, I do want to say, like, it has been like that in early seasons, but I feel like maybe there's, I don't know if they, like, changed VFX companies, but it feels even more like a 3D model now. Now, I don't want to say it's like necessarily like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the Scorpion King, but I want to say, like, you know, do you remember like the facial animations there? That's what people mean by, or like what I mean when I say Play-Doh. That is just so transparent in scenes like this. And again, a lot of you might not care for this, but I have to talk about it. Like, this is a review. I'm now going to talk about a bit of the visual effects I noticed, and it is a bit, and I do remember this very vividly with the Armageddon stuff as well. So, it is what it is. I didn't really expect anything less, but kudos to them for like trying to go all out with a lot of action this episode. And of course, that was going to be the case with the, negative Speed Force somewhat avatars there. With Reverse Flash, Cobalt Blue, Zoom, and Savitar. I mean, well, to be fair, they're not all avatars at all, but you get my point. They're the big bads of previous seasons. And so this is where Team Flash just like spawned like a video game. I mean, I guess maybe they could have got Nora appeared first, but then all of Team Flash were there. And I haven't caught up in a minute. And I have to say, it is pretty cool that they're a lot more team-oriented now. Like, the last time I saw all of this, they were always trying to like work Team Flash up into like, this kind of group dynamic of sorting out issues. Here it seems like they've come a long way, but I feel like there's certain things where there's very contrived moments with what we're about to see. Like, each hero, I know they want to elevate up these heroes because they're the good guys, right? And in of themselves, maybe they should be able to take on a powerful threat. I just felt like it was way too easy for a majority of them. But hey, what do I know? Maybe they are just that powerful. But it is the kind of conundrum of the speedsters they're up against. I feel for most of them should have been able to maybe snap their necks, or like they just do something that's so stupid, like Zoom later on in the episode, where he could have just run up to Thawne and Chillblaine, but instead like he does this whole thing. But I'll save that for that. Regardless, when Eddie did say like I have a whole legion and they all just come out, I was like, oh damn. This is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. It's just what kind of unfolded after that. I could probably get a lot more nitpicky than what I'm even gonna get into in this review. Otherwise, this will last for 2 hours. I'm probably gonna bring this up quite a few times. Like, there was dialogue in this moment. Not so much with Zoom here. He's just gonna say, "We're gonna slaughter your team and end your legacy forever." Okay, fair enough. But like Thawne, Daniel Panabake. I don't know if like Daniel Panabake is meant to be a bit more wooden with her performance with Thawne compared to Caitlyn. And I'm just genuinely like critiquing this here, or maybe it's the line as well, but she's just like, "No, you won't. And that's your only warning." I was just thinking, like, is that your comeback? Like, I'm really not trying to sound like I'm hating here. It's just, yeah, the dialogue at times is just a bit... This is when Barry says execute Delta maneuvers, so going back into what we were talking about a second ago with the teamwork's pretty cool, but I was thinking, now please do inform me, because again, I haven't tuned in for a while. I need to make that transparent. Can like each individual Team Flash member outrun speedsters? I mean, this could be a thing, to be fair, where you're kind of just meant to like switch your brain off. Like, even in the early days of the Flash, like Barry could have done so many things, but instead he stops to talk. Like, that's a famous critique of this show that if you really want to stick onto that, you're going to run into so many problems. And maybe that translates here. But even with Thawne and Chillblaine, are her powers to kind of fly away in Frost style, like faster than the speedster, or as fast? I know she's meant to be like this goddess, but what about Virtue? Cecile seems to have had a massive upgrade. Can she kind of fly away like super speedster level fast? I don't know, but apparently, I did find it like a nice touch with how they paired Savitar with Nora, though. And she's like, "Well, your mother escaped her fate, but you won't," and he like stabs her, but she phases with the blade, and she stabs him in the back. Then we have Godspeed going after Cecile. Godspeed sends a bunch of his clones after her, and again, she can stop them even though they're like speedsters. But to be fair, like, to play devil's advocate, maybe her powers allow her to sense each incoming one at like super speed force speed, so like she can stop them. We have Reverse Flash appear at Star Labs. I kind of dig this because it is Reverse Flash. He could like fight all the others, but he's gonna kind of punch you in the heart, so he's gonna go for one of the people like left behind at Star Labs, and he starts to go Emperor Palpatine on Chester. I still stand by this. I know so many people like the evolution of the Speed Force powers, and I don't mind some of the early ones where like Barry could like fling a lightning bolt like he does at the very end of the episode. But when we got into like whips or like throwing darts and like lightsabers that appeared again this episode, personally, and this is my opinion, it's got way too out there for me. I don't really dig stuff like that, especially using the Speed Force lightning. I feel like they would have never, like, if that idea came up in season 1 and 2, even granted, like, they were much less powerful back then, I feel like Todd Helbing would have just been like, nah, like that's a bit too far. But fair enough if you think it's really cool. And I know they can do stuff like that in the comics as well. This is where Allegra comes in and she's like, "Oh no, Chucky Wucky man, no, come back to me." And this is where Allegra, goes re-mode on Thawne and blasts him back. Reverse Flash, I felt like could have done something here or just stopped Allegra before she even charged up. But no, of course, because that would have just been very bad for one of the main co-stars of the show. And of course, Chuck wakes up, because of course he would, and she's like, you came back to me. And I just felt like there was a lot of, oh my god, like moments here. Of course there's a little camera pan of them kissing. Fair enough if you're invested in this relationship. From what I'm gathering from a lot of other people, they switch off in the Allegra and Chuck scenes, each to their own, I guess. But I am on the latter side of that. And it's just, it's just like, you can really tell Eric Wallace loves these other characters when they like give him a proper like pan, like kissing scene. And it's like, oh, you came back to me. And for me, I'm just like, oh god. And I've heard there's just been a lot of stuff like that, like throughout the season. Meanwhile, with Zoom, he is blocked off by Captain Singh and the others. Chilblain and Keown arrive to stop Zoom here. And again, I know these are lines from earlier seasons, but I think this is what I mean. Like, I feel like they fit, or the way the scene was cut, the way it was shot back then. It kind of just worked a bit better. But here, when it's just like, too bad none of you are powerful enough to lock up the darkness, and then he just went at it, it just came across really cheesy. And then Zoom's tactic of just like charging up and using Palpatine powers himself, something we've never seen him use before. I just felt like it was an idiotic move for him to do. Because in this moment, we had Keown. I know she's meant to be a goddess, so fair enough that she can do this. She went like Master Yoda mode in Attack of the Clones, like when Dooku sent the lightning and like he absorbed it and then sent it back. That's exactly what happened here. So I don't know. As much as I am enjoying the villains coming back in this episode, I just felt like they're all idiots. To be honest, they're all just, and there's a lot of cheesiness. Fair enough, again, if you love it, but for me, I just see a lot of the cracks as much as I'm trying to be like, I'm enjoying this. But with Cobalt Blue and Barry, they land in Jitters, and this is where we have Cobalt Blue get the lightsaber out. I'm guessing like the negative speed force just educates his mind with all of these abilities. Again, I'm just not going to ask questions. And he doesn't want to kill them. He's just like using it as leverage for Barry to, just let me kill you, so I don't have to kill these people. But this is where Jay Garrick pops in, and he can absorb the negative speed force. Like, so he basically absorbed Cobalt Blue's powers in this moment. And sure, like it is one of those don't ask questions moments, because it's like it's a trick he learned from his Earth 90 doppelganger. And it's like, okay, but like how? I don't know. How does he do that? Is it not like poison to a positive side speed force speedster absorbing the negative lightning of a negative speed force avatar? I don't know. Either way, moving on. Eddie's like he needs more speed, so after all of the other previous season villains were beaten like they were just metahumans of the week, he absorbs their power and then he disappears. So like supercharge up, because as pointed out in the episode, he's going to keep charging up, and he's going to get to the point of Thawne last season where he overloaded and died. But Eddie doesn't quite realize that in his little naive negative speed force state. But Barry being Barry, fair enough, he doesn't want Eddie to die. And I have to admit, this is where things got quite wishy-washy for me with Keown, because as Barry pointed out, that won't work if we just stop Eddie from dying or whatever, because the negative speed force will just find another avatar. It's the way it goes, right? One thing I do want to say here, though, Grant Gustin's performance was really, really good when he was talking about wanting a better world for his family and for everyone. But when Keown, and again, I think this is quintessential Eric Wallace. And fair enough if you like this, but I think it's just a bit of a hard sell for me with the direction of this whole coexistence thing. Because Keown is like, what if there's another way forward? You say balance is about violence and death, but it doesn't have to be that way. Nature is about more than just balance. It's about coexistence. All things living together, not in conflict, but neutral trust. So she's saying the solution to this, and forever onwards, right, is the positive speed force and the negative speed force. So you've got Barry here, like, the avatar of the good side, and you might have Thawne and others as like typical negative speed force users. You can have a negative speed force avatar coexisting and like never running into issues. But I feel like this undoes so much of the show in the past. And I get what they're trying to say here. Like Thawne, for example, gave in to hate. So like, basically they're just trying to make it sound like if you're corrupted, and that's the interesting word to use, by the negative speed force, you don't have to be. You can be like perfectly neutral. At best, you can be like a good guy with a bit of an emo mode, but you don't have to do everything the other villains connected to the negative speed Force have done. And I don't really always believe that. I do believe that some people give into it more than others, but I feel like they've given examples of how the negative Speed Force in of itself inherently gives you a dark side, again, Star Wars analogy here, influence. Sure, again, I want to acknowledge you don't have to lean into it as bad as like Thawne getting super like mad, but they've already shown examples of how, for example, if I remember correctly, Nora in the past, when she got taken over by the negative Speed Force, she's a good character, but like look how easy that dark side corruption is. It's just inherent with the negative Speed Force. So them trying to just sell here, and again, this is what I mean, it's very Eric Wallace, and how no, like they didn't actually have to do that. Like even when Nora got taken over, like that was just her being pretty weak to it. She just went kind of re-mode because no, she went like that because it's the goddamn negative Speed Force. Do you know what I mean? That's what it is. But she's saying no, like in the future you can totally coexist. The new avatar of the negative Speed Force, as if it like won't have a dark side effect on them, but that is what it is. But like wash all that away because Eric Wallace, like that's the way I view this, and mix that in with the dialogue. Like even Barry, like they try and make opposite points for like someone like me, right? So Barry says, the last avatar I faced, I sat down and stopped fighting. Thawne didn't. You want coexistence, but I'm sorry it's impossible. But then you have Keown saying, well, Barry, then you need to believe in the impossible. And it's just that really transparent thing, like that dialogue where I feel like they're putting up this message where you can have coexistent sides, but in all reality, I don't think that's really how it works in the lore, but sod that, because love and coexistence and the negative Speed Force doesn't have a dark side influence on you anymore, and you can totally be fine and grab a, I know Eddie says, oh, we won't see eye to eye in the future, but like, I'm still going to be like a good guy. No, but you're connected to the negative Speed Force. You should be arguably tainted until you're not. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just don't, I know I'm rambling for a while here, but it just screams Eric Wallace to me. You got the dark side of the Force in Star Wars, and you got the light side of the Force. You can be a bit of a dark Jedi, but dark Jedi who don't always go as deep into the dark side as, the Dark Lords of the Sith are still pretty much assholes. Do you know what I mean? They still have this taint to them, but they're acting here as per a similar way with the negative Speed Force and the normal Speed Force, that you don't have to be like that. But what about Nora seasons ago? Or like, I feel like there's other examples, but I don't know, I give up. Next thing, Barry goes into the negative Speed Force and tries to speak to Eddie because, he's charging up and it's going to kill him if he carries on. Barry tackles him, tells him that this is going to kill you if you don't stop. He wants to save him. Eddie doesn't necessarily believe him in this moment. Fair enough. He is under what I've been preaching this whole time, the negative effect of the negative Speed Force. This is kind of what it does. I do want to stress, I do think there's a bit of a spectrum, but like acting like this will never not taint the future avatars or whatever is just, no, you can't sell that. Like, I don't believe it. Barry goes Obi-Wan mode, saying you become the very thing you swore to destroy. But in this case, you've become the person you died trying to stop, but you have to remain as the Avatar. Again, the new way forward with coexistence and all that. That's how we'll create a better world, and etc., etc. Eddie takes off the crystal and destroys it. That was easy. Again, I at this point, if people are watching, because I know a lot of people dip off at a certain viewer retention in these videos, but that was kind of easy, wasn't it? Could this conversation not have happened earlier? I don't know. It's just very Eric Wallace. What can I say? Like, no hate to the actual human being Eric Wallace. I just don't like the way he writes the show, show runs it, basically. Simple as that. I just yeah. Like, I'm not saying this should have been extravagant. I know we already had, like, a lot of action before this, but as I'm looking at my notes here, it's just Barry did the speech thing, offered a bit of love, better world, coexistence. Ding! So now we have the new law of the Flash in this universe anyway, where, as Eddie said in this moment, just because basically I've done this doesn't mean we're going to see eye to eye in the future, but he's going to be the avatar of the negative Speed Force, and I guess just not corrupted by the dark side. It's like being a Sith without being a Sith, because even though that's not the way it works in Star Wars, and it's not really the way it would work here, but with Eric Wallace's push for love and, harmony and balance and stuff, it's just, again, I feel like what Eric Wallace is trying to introduce here is that you can be a negative Speed Force avatar, ignoring the dark side taint, and at the very best, you would just be a bit emo. That's it. That's it. But anyway, towards the end of the episode, everything's back to normal. Timeline's safe. Eddie's a good negative Speed Force Sith Jedi person at the same time. Chester, they tease that he's got a future in the superhero business because the whole black hole cosmic energy living in his cells is the reason why the Palpatine Thawne energy didn't kill him. Then we have Team Flash chilling in the hospital. Nora wonders if she's breaking the timeline rules by being here. That is a question I've had every single time that kind of happens, but again, it's totally one of those things you're meant to stop asking questions with. This is when a Wells appears. Now, this is one, like maybe the third thing I've mentioned in this review, where it's like it might have been something I missed. Who is this Wells? He just appears out of nowhere. Even Keone says, you must be a Wells. Nice to meet you. And he basically cosmically advises her, the Speed Force's threat is gone, and now it's time for you to ascend. Become the natural order's protector of all things. So like she's gonna go like proper God mode now. Now the next scene where we actually had Iris giving birth and Barry there, I thought that was like a really nice scene. Again, even with me thinking all of these things watching this episode, as I was watching this, my eyes glazed up. Like totally, I don't think I shed a tear like sometimes I do with Superman and Lois, but I was in it. It was a very sweet moment for Barry and Iris, and you know, just for the sake of the old times, like I was totally in this moment. Again, you know, it's nothing against the cast or like Barry and Iris in general, like with my withdrawal of this show. So like when I see a moment like this where I can kind of like get engrossed and see it and be in it and like these characters with what they're going through, I'm just as invested as I used to be just for those few seconds. So yeah, that was lovely, very, very full circle. Up next, this is when Keone actually disappears. She dips, like ascends. Caitlin is left behind. Obviously, they thought Caitlin died when Keone came in the body a while back, but when Keone ascended, the mortal body remains, so Caitlin is back. Then we have the 1 week later party. It is still weird to me that the Speed Force is like Nora and there with Jay Garrick, so it's kind of like Barry's mum and dad at the I don't know, like it just brings me flashbacks to like the mum and dad aspect of all the different forces back then. Like that's just you know, even Grant Gustin said that was like a bizarre take on the story. I'm not trying to twist his words there. Maybe he said it a different way. I'm paraphrasing, but you get my point. I'm not a fan. And then we got a nice scene at the end where Barry is with little Nora, you know, talks about believing in the impossible. We have just this overall ending commentary from him saying that our family has been blessed with these amazing gifts, and maybe, you know, that speed shouldn't just belong to us anymore. Again, I still sense the Eric Wallace vibes in this, but it is also kind of true to the comics in certain takes, because Barry here runs to the Ferris Air testing facility and tosses some lightning in the sky. So it is almost like one of the original fan theory endings where people wanted that lightning that struck Barry to be the future Barry doing that to himself, but instead what they've done is Barry creating other speedsters. And that is Avery Ho, Max Mercury, Jess Chambers, and it's nice to envision, like, in our headcanon, like, this show was never going to have, like, a definitive ending, because we know, like, from Nora, like, older Nora, everything goes way on into the future, but it's nice to know that Barry's going to be, like, training these other speedsters, and there's going to be more of them about, and, you know, the show goes on even if it's not on air, if you know what I mean. And it ends with him saying, maybe if we share a piece of ourselves, we can break out of our old cycles of violence and pain, one where we can coexist, all of us together, where nothing has to be impossible as long as we believe in it. And again, I know I keep saying Eric Wallace, and I'm not saying like Barry would have never have had a commentary like this at the end of the show, whoever the showrunner is, but it is very like coexisting and all, you know, all of that. But fair enough. Like, it was also a great final shot of Grant Gustin running, just with a fat grin on his face. And you know, that was the final shot. Nothing has to be impossible. And to be fair, it does ring back to the original commentary of the impossible ever since Flash season 1. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is it. The final episode of The Flash. So my overall thoughts. Look, I'm just going to be straight up honest. You know, I left the show, watching the show, covering the show, came back to it for this episode, and even though it's the finale, you had some cool kind of fan servicey stuff in there. I still don't think it's like that great, like, at all, to be honest with you. I did enjoy parts of it. There were moments that were cool. special moments that made me like tear up a couple of times. I'm sure people who have been watching each and every episode maybe found this perhaps one of the better episodes, but that's just an interesting question in of itself, because people found that with like the episode of when everything went full circle with the Reverse Flash, and we had that, you know, extended scene on the end, you know, basically Barry going back and doing that thing where he wants the other Barry to not go ahead with what he's going to try and do. Like all of that were like people were really praising it, like the Green Arrow episode when Stephen Amell comes back. So I wonder if people are going to view this as one of the better episodes of the season. But then again, it has the added responsibility and weight of like closing off the entire show. So I do think there's going to be a massive mix of opinions out there. It depends on people's like critical standards, if you will. Like maybe people might look past some things and still think, okay, like this was a nice way to end the whole thing on, but maybe if you're a bit more critical of like writing here and there, you'd still be a bit like me maybe and be like, okay, like I get it, like I see what they were going for, but there's this and this, which is, yeah, like it's still the Flash under Eric Wallace's showrunnership that is just very transparent to me, even though I still love Grant Gustin, Candace Patton as Iris West and whatnot. It just is what it is to me. Like, it still is that. Do you know what I mean? But hey, it's over. I'm really not trying to sound like a party pooper, but I have just, my integrity is important to me to give honest opinions, and I still don't think this, like, I wouldn't go back to it if it was still running for like another 2 seasons based off of this episode at all. But hey ho, like, you know, tuned in. Okay, like it's over now. Okay. I'm sad. Like, that's one thing I do want to say. Like, I feel like I have already moved on because I haven't covered this show in a while. But peeking back into it for this review, there is a bit of, I say sad, but a bit of melancholy feeling there. You know, because it has been going for so long. It does go far back on my channel, you know, episode in, episode out, 22, 20, whatever, how many episodes there were of reviews back in the day on the BobaTalks channel. So I guess I'm just going to wrap this up and just say, what did you guys think of the series finale of The Flash? What do you think of Season 9 as a whole? Because obviously I didn't tune into a lot of it. I've caught up in various ways. I've tuned in here and there, but it really didn't look appealing to me. But was it painful for you? Was it not remotely painful? Did you love it? Let me know. And I think that ends this video. So it's going to be interesting to see the comment section. Might have some people agree with me. Might have some people go mad at me for having an opinion. I don't know. We'll see down in the comments. Either way, like this video if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if you want to dislike it. It helps me out either way. Check out the links in the description. Check out some of my other videos. It was fun tuning into The Flash for one last time, guys. I'm sure we'll have a discussion about this on the live stream and get more of your opinions. But in the meantime, I will be reading your opinions. And if you want to see like a bonus video, because I did a reading the Titans fans' comments to the series finale video. I've never done that before, but it could be cool doing that for The Flash and seeing your opinions and reading them out and reacting to them in a video and going over a bit of an expanded opinion. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.